If you read his press releases, he's a genius inventor and businessman whose sole goal is to make the world a better place. But is that the truth? With his recent purchase of Twitter, X, and the greater public scrutiny of Musk's objectionable behavior and bizarre decisions, it's safe to say that people are starting to see a darker side to this 2010s nerd hero. The facade of being a tech genius and the savior of humanity has been cracked, and underneath it is the ugly truth about Elon Musk. Grab a boring company official flamethrower to light your way as we delve into the seedy underbelly of the controversial billionaire's life story. Born June 28, 1971, in Pretoria, South Africa, Elon Reeve Musk would have you believe that he came from humble beginnings. And by humble beginnings, we of course mean he was born into a family that was already far better off than his current-day self would have you believe. He likely made the claim that he's a self-made man, that all his extravagant wealth and business acumen was built on years and years of hard work, starting at the bottom and climbing to the top. The truth is, however, that Elon Musk's father, one Elon Musk, was an electrical and mechanical engineer and property developer, as well as reportedly a pilot and a sailor in his downtime. Then there's the factor of the now infamous Zambian emerald mine. While this part of his family fortune has been disputed by Elon in more recent years, in 2014 the man himself openly admitted to his father and family's ownership of an emerald mine. This was brought up as recently as 2022. The now former United States Secretary of Labor Robert Reich challenged the very notion of so-called self-made billionaires. Reich asserted that while the idea is that anyone who's willing to work hard enough can achieve tremendous wealth, a lot of rich people who claimed that this was the case received considerable financial backing from their families. This rags to riches narrative pushed by a lot of these people ignores the considerable leg up they were given by their families, which in turn provided them with avenues to accumulate even more money. Among the examples Reich listed, like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, he also mentioned Musk originating from a wealthy family who owned an emerald mine. Elon Musk is quick to refute this on Twitter at the time, attacking Reich's character and arguing against the idea that he'd come from wealth. Ironically, this now often disputed claim about Musk is something he was more than happy to brag about in interviews less than a decade earlier. Whether or not the family did indeed own an emerald mine, even if that story is completely falsified, there's no denying that growing up Elon's family had plenty of money. That would conflict with the idea of him being in any way self-made, or any notion that he's at all like the rest of us. Instead of coming from rags to riches, he merely went from riches to even greater riches. He and his siblings experienced a life of extravagant wealth from a young age, provided access to thoroughbred horses and motorcycles as young as 14. The Musk family greatly benefited from being part of South Africa's ruling white minority during its apartheid. This was the name given to the policies that enforced racial segregation within the country between the late 1940s and early 1990s. Under apartheid, Elon and his family had an economic advantage over the non-white majority of the South African population. Were it not for his family's connections and considerable resources, Elon Musk wouldn't have been able to move to Canada at the age of 18. Even today, moving across the world from one country to another, while not impossible, is extremely difficult for many working people. It's no small expense either, but when you're born into a wealthy family, the cost incurred by immigrating is probably more negligible. Again, Elon was lucky in this regard. His mother, Mae Musk, was a model and a dietitian who'd been born in Canada, making the initial move and the eventual Canadian citizenship much easier to acquire. Now, it is worth noting that the cushy upbringing that Elon Musk reportedly had wasn't without its own share of troubles. According to an interview Musk gave, his father could be abusive at times. Publicly, Elon Musk has made his own harsh comments toward his son, stating he thinks Elon needs to grow up. The pair have long been estranged from each other, and Elon Musk is seemingly also an unsavory character, to say the least. It's been reported that he, at 76 years of age, has had 2 children with his own stepdaughter, Jana Bezoudenhout, who is 41 years younger than him and to whom Errol became a stepfather when Jana was 4. However, given the fact that Elon Musk's behavior does somewhat make his alleged abuse toward his son believable, it shouldn't be forgotten that Elon is known to have a habit of greatly embellishing, or sometimes outright lying, about all manners of things. And with the aforementioned emerald mine speculation, he's been known to completely deny things he previously admitted to being true. And as we'll come to see, he's not beyond making bold public declarations that later turn out to be false. Either way, neither Elon Musk nor Elon Musk are particularly upstanding people, it seems, so in a way the apple has not fallen very far from the tree. After securing a Canadian visa through his mother, Elon Musk studied in the US at the University of Pennsylvania, achieving both a Bachelor of Arts degree in physics and a Bachelor of Science in economics. He then went on to Stanford University to get his PhD. As we're making this video, the total cost of a single academic year of study at Stanford is over $82,000. Yes, that's for a single year, so no doubt Elon took his opportunity to study at this university very seriously and understood that it was a tremendous opportunity, the likes of which many in America will sadly never be able to afford. I mean, he did, right? No, in fact, he dropped out after 2 days, and years later would claim that he left Stanford University with $100,000 in student debt. The primary reason Elon Musk dropped out was to pursue a career in the tech sector, which drew him to Silicon Valley. Partnering with his brother Kimball Musk, a close friend of infamous creepazoid Jeffrey Epstein, the two aimed to create an online business directory called Zip2. This would act as a digital alternative to the Yellow Pages. This business venture of a searchable web directory was funded by none other than Elon Musk, who offered up $28,000 towards Zip2's startup costs. When it came to founding of Zip2, Elon Musk just happened to be in the right place at the right time. It was by pure happenstance that he was active in the tech space during the dot-com bubble, when the high rate of internet adoption in the late 90s meant there was more venture capital available from investors seeking to put money into online startups. And Elon also had a financial advantage thanks to his dear old dad's cash. Even then, Elon wasn't about to miss out on garnering potential investors for Zip2, even if it meant outright lying to them to get them to invest. It's been reported that in order to trick investors out of their money, Elon Musk built a large casing around a normal-sized computer. Well, normal size for the late 90s at least. How did this benefit him or Zip2 for that matter? Well, supposedly it was done to make the investors believe Elon's software was far more advanced than it actually was, painting Zip2 as some kind of sci-fi supercomputer. Of course, in reality it wasn't, although this pattern of behavior wouldn't end there. As you'll soon see, lying to investors and consumers, over-embellishing and promising technology that is infeasible and impossible to create are just as easy as breathing for Elon Musk. His trick with the Zip2 supercomputer might have worked, as easy as it would be to see through today, and it netted him an investment of $3 million from a venture capital firm. However, Musk was only offered this investment under the condition that he allowed somebody who was more experienced to take the helm and run Zip2 as a company. Nowadays, his ego often has him rewriting the history books to claim he founded companies he didn't even start himself, and we'll come back to that in a few moments. But at the time, Zip2 needed the money, so Elon agreed to the conditions. More experienced programmers were brought into the company, and many had to rewrite the code that Musk had written. In their expert opinions, the level of knowledge on display in this coding was amateurish and seemed to have been the result of self-taught skills. Sure, coding is a complex skill that can take years to fully master. It would take a computer genius to learn how to code in a short period of time, let alone to do so by teaching themselves. Elon Musk was not and is not a computer genius, that much is clear from the mess he made of the Zip2 code. When it came to the day-to-day management of the company, Elon Musk would reportedly get angry at employees if they weren't at work at 9 o'clock at night. A standard workday for those who aren't big Dolly Parton fans typically lasts from 9 in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evenings. Maintaining a healthy work-life balance is important for human beings and our mental health, but Elon Musk's unreasonable disdain for his workers, who simply want to maintain such a balance, was yet another sign of things to come. Another element of his behavior that hasn't changed in over 20 years since the Zip2 days, more recently, Musk forced Tesla employees to return to offices during the 2020 coronavirus pandemic. If they didn't, he threatened that they'd have to leave the company entirely. Even more recently, during Musk's takeover of the social media platform Twitter, reports would emerge that employees were forced to sleep at the office, unable to leave thanks to Musk's rule that Twitter staff had to work a minimum of 40 hours a week. Although, in order to secure an investment for Zip2, he was made to step down from the top position in the company, Elon Musk later staged a coup to reinstate himself as CEO. Shortly afterwards, he made $22 million when the company was sold off to the Compaq Computer Corporation. Even back then, Elon Musk was obsessed with his own image. It's long been a key motivator behind all his biggest business decisions, all of which aren't actually made in order to benefit anyone other than himself. A few years later, in 1999, enter X.com. No, not that one. The original X.com was an online banking platform that Elon Musk created, and by created we mean invested the windfall of the Zip2 sale into. Alongside 3 other co-founders, X.com's business model was designed to incentivize people into signing up for their service. By opening up an account with X.com, a person could receive a whopping $20 in their checking account. How generous! X.com was designed to be a way for people to send money electronically without the need to use a traditional bank. Hold on a minute, that sounds a lot like something we all use a lot nowadays. That also happened to exist at the same time as X.com, PayPal. Now, there's an important detail that's often been misconstrued, and that is no, Elon Musk is not the founder of, nor did he invent PayPal. Even today, he's often incorrectly attributed with this creation. His company X.com, which existed at the same time, merged with PayPal in 2000. X.com had even been using the existing service for up to a year beforehand. In short, PayPal predated X.com, and no, Elon wasn't a founding member of that particular digital money sending service. The truth was, while Elon Musk had once again talked a big game to get investors to give money to X.com, their technology for running their operation was antiquated even for the late 90s, and thus this meant massive security risks, which is the main thing any online service provider desperately wants to avoid, especially one that's dealing with the public's money and private banking information. Another thing to keep in mind when it comes to the future endeavors of Mr. Musk. X.com merged with another startup known as Confinity, which was the company responsible for creating, you guessed it, PayPal. The X name was abandoned for, well, marketing reasons. Market research conducted at the time indicated that websites containing the letter X in their URL carried associations with a rather different type of industry, one catering to an even more adult market than the banking sector. While Elon pushed to keep the name, despite how poorly marketable it was, it stayed as PayPal instead. Things started out rough at PayPal. During his time at the company, one executive suspected that Elon Musk had intentionally refrained from disclosing important financial details to PayPal's board of directors. At one point, PayPal was considered to be one of the worst business ideas of 1999, and due in large part to Elon's involvement, the company was losing a lot more money. More and more staff at PayPal questioned his decision-making and eventually deposed him via coup, removing him from his position as CEO of the company and replacing him with Peter Thiel, a young blood enthusiast and one of the co-founders of Confinity. After becoming a public company on the stock exchange in 2002, Thiel would sell PayPal to eBay for $1.5 billion. Had Elon not been removed, the company probably would have tanked in a matter of a few short months, but his grimy fingers weren't completely unhooked from PayPal even after it sold to eBay. Elon kept his shares and made a cool $180 million out of the sale. Despite no doubt wanting people to think he was more involved in the creation of PayPal, given how successful it would go on to become, in truth, Musk wasn't as influential in the founding of PayPal as he wants people to think. The only reason his name is still associated with it is thanks to a clause in his separation agreement from when he was removed as CEO. The clause stated that he was legally required to be referred to as one of PayPal's founders, even though he wasn't. Once again, this was a sign of things to come with another company commonly associated with Musk, that being the company that truly put him on the map, Tesla. As well as not being the founder of PayPal, Elon Musk is also not the founder of Tesla. As a matter of fact, the real founders of the car company are Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. The pair formally incorporated Tesla Motors together in 2003, and it wasn't until a year later that Elon Musk became their largest shareholder with an investment of $6.5 million. While this money, pocket change to a man like Musk, might have made him chairman of Tesla's board of directors, that doesn't mean he was in charge of running the company, and it certainly didn't spontaneously create a time portal allowing Musk to go back in time and replace Eberhard and Tarpenning as the company's founders. In fact, in terms of Elon Musk's contributions to Tesla, he only had a single patent to his name. That patent is for the shape of the charging port, not the technology itself, which is unique when compared to the connecting cables for other electric vehicles. If you've been so gracious to give our obnoxious oligarch friend the benefit of the doubt so far, then you might be forgiven for asking if this was done for some clever scientific or marketing reason. Does the specific shape of the Tesla charging port and the cable connector somehow make the electric vehicle charge faster? Or does it increase the duration between the charges, making the car's batteries go on longer? No, it was patented so no other models of electric cars could charge at Tesla stations. It was also Elon who pushed for the construction of more Tesla charging stations, to the point where they now make up 40% of all electric car charging stations in the US alone. This isn't so much a tactic to make charging accessible to drivers, and is instead a way to push more affordable electric car companies out of the market, thereby giving Tesla a monopoly over the electric vehicle market. During an interview they gave with the New York Times, the actual Tesla founders made the critical error of not referring to Elon Musk by name. They had no reason to, of course, since he wasn't the CEO, nor did he have any involvement with the production of their interviews. However, not having his 0 notable contributions mentioned in the interview caused something of a tantrum. Musk made threats to leave Tesla unless Eberhard and Tarpenning contacted the New York Times and had them issue a retraction or an amendment to the article. To demand to be mentioned in an interview about a company you don't even run, well, that speaks to an astronomical level of pettiness. Set on becoming the public face of the company, Elon Musk drove Eberhard out of Tesla in 2007, illegally denying the man his severance pay in the process. This led to a lawsuit against Musk and a countersuit back at Eberhard, once again foreshadowing the future. Elon claimed Eberhard was responsible for the company's financial troubles, and while a settlement was eventually reached out of court, Musk still managed to rewrite history as a result. Just like his separation clause from PayPal, Musk legally demanded to become known as the founder of Tesla, kicking Martin Eberhard out of his own company that he'd built alongside Mark Tarpenning. Under Elon, Tesla's been paving the way in creating more environmentally friendly vehicles at affordable prices. Well, affordable to someone who has the funds to meet the $50,000 to $120,000 price tag, and also someone who doesn't mind potentially being incinerated when their shiny new time bomb on wheels detonates. Sadly, to call Tesla's vehicles environmentally friendly is something of a misnomer. While electric cars are more sustainable than those that rely on fossil fuels to power them, Tesla's cars are powered by batteries that contain lithium. Much like other resources, such as emeralds, for example, lithium has to be extracted from underground mines. The process of extracting the raw material from the earth has the potential to cause exponential harm to the planet. Soil degradation, water shortages in the surrounding area, and biodiversity loss are all known issues that can be caused or worsened by lithium mining. Overall, the mining process contributes to increasing global warming. All that's to say that while electric vehicles are intended to be a more carbon-friendly alternative to gas-powered cars, the amount of environmental damage involved in Tesla production effectively negates any positive environmental impact that their cars might have. With full knowledge of all this, Elon sold these anyway. In fact, he allowed the Tesla Model S batteries to be fitted in vehicles despite being aware that these particular batteries had an alarming tendency to break down and, well, catch fire. Lithium-ion battery fires are extremely difficult for firefighters to extinguish, leading to 30 confirmed deaths that came as a result of Tesla vehicles becoming uncontrollable fireballs. And that's not counting all the people who have been injured or worse by the autonomous self-driving function, which has been widely reported to be buggy and unable to register children crossing the street or stop the car in accordance with traffic rules. The vehicles that one of Elon Musk's flagship companies sells are considered by some to be death traps masquerading as a symbol of status and wealth, as well as support for Elon himself. Despite being hazardous to anyone who's not fond of being burnt to a cinder, arguably the upshot of Tesla's popularity has positively impacted the wider automobile market. Rival car manufacturers have been forced to up their game and produce their own models of electric vehicles in order to compete, and many of these are safer and more affordable alternatives for the general consumer. And at any rate, you're at least slightly less likely to get blown up by one of those if you're out on the road. Tesla has also been responsible for a number of OSHA violations and has a track record of trying to cover up some of the poor working conditions at their factories, as well as failing to report employee injuries to save face. One employee suffered an inhalation injury from breathing toxic fumes, and Tesla neglected to mention this in a government-mandated report. Not reporting serious incidents like this is a crime, as is lying on official reports to make a company look safer than it is. This was discovered and reported by Reveal, a nonprofit news organization. In retaliation, Elon bashed Reveal, claiming that they were just journalists looking for advertising revenue and attention from clicks. But Reveal's status as a nonprofit means they don't run advertisements. Tesla then released an additional response, likely with Musk's input, that attempted to smear Reveal as an extremist group intentionally spreading disinformation. However, Reveal had just delivered their findings, which had been based on various medical records, OSHA reports, and Tesla's own injury logs they had gathered, along with testimony from current and former employees of Tesla. Adding to the list of poor ways Elon Musk has treated the staff of his electric car company, he's also threatened to remove stock options for any employees who were members of a workers' union. The threat was one that caused him to face some legal backlash, but it's clear that Elon's stance on unions who advocate for better treatment of working people hasn't changed. And why would it? Unions challenge every cost-cutting, employee-endangering measure that Elon would want to employ, all to make himself a little more money on the backs of other people's labor. A guy who treats his workers like cattle instead of human beings and holds such resentment for the organized bodies that strive to protect workers' rights is far from the man of the people he likes to portray himself as. The slights of Elon Musk on his own workers still don't end there. Following the aforementioned factory injuries that were the result of poor working conditions at Tesla facilities and then covered up by the company, Musk promised to both meet with anyone injured at a Tesla factory as well as walk the factory floor, doing employees' jobs for them. According to those who received injuries, he never fulfilled this promise. During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Elon took up a particular disdain for how widely popularized working from home had become. As a way to reduce the risk of infection spreading, many businesses were required by the government to have their staff work remotely. Elon Musk, on the other hand, wanted to do things a little differently and forced his employees to go back to work during the height of lockdown. This caused an outbreak of over 450 cases in the factory, requiring those affected to return home and self-isolate. Remember that number, 450 cases, and this took place during the year 2021, all because of the same so-called genius who claimed there would be 0 cases of coronavirus by April 2020. Tesla was additionally sued by several of its employees for rampant racist practices within the car manufacturing company. Black Tesla workers were denied promotions and often suffered racial harassment while at work. Not only this, but the lawsuit alleges that only black employees were forced to scrub the floors of the factory facility on their hands and knees. Tesla was flippant and dismissive of these allegations and instead attempted to deflect by boasting about how much they've done for clean energy that requires damage to the environment in its production. Now, trying to exercise as much fairness as possible, it is true that Tesla isn't the only car manufacturer that's been known to engage in unethical activity within its factories. But while that might be the case, and more needs to be done to make working conditions for the people in those factories safer, there is a key difference. Few other CEOs of any other companies are worshipped to the degree that Elon Musk is. We've already mentioned the lithium mining for Tesla batteries and the impact this has on the environment, but Tesla's negative environmental impact extends even further. The company's been known to exploit government climate programs, like the carbon credit scheme, to make extra money. Carbon credits are essentially a permit for the amount of greenhouse gas a company is allowed to produce. If a company produces fewer emissions than the set amount, then they earn credits. If they overproduce, causing risk to the environment, then they reduce the number of credits. Tesla earns a lot of carbon credits and then sells them to other companies for a bump in profits, effectively monetizing the pollution that other companies create. Elon also contributes his fair share of pollution with his rocket-related vanity projects, like sending a Tesla into space, thanks to one of his other most famous companies, SpaceX, as well as leaning into occupying Mars as part of his public persona and brand, and claiming 10 years ago that there'd be people on Mars within a decade, so now. SpaceX has offered up its own share of proof at just how ignorant Musk truly is. During a now infamous launch, SpaceX's Starship rocket exploded minutes after it cleared the launch pad during a flight test. Not only was the explosion one of numerous failed launches for SpaceX, but the Federal Aviation Authority had denied Musk permission to launch. Their reasoning? They cited one of Musk's own tweets as a reason for concern, after he posted that the SpaceX flight in question had a 1 in 3 chance of success. For once, he was actually right about something because that rocket did, in fact, detonate. Then there's the aptly named Boring Company, dreamt up by Elon when he was sitting in Los Angeles traffic one day. He vowed to create a safe, earthquake-proof tunnel network under the city in order to reduce traffic and congestion. Sure, it was a decision he made based on the results of a Twitter poll, so that means it has to be a great business idea, right? You might be thinking that this tunnel system sounds a lot like a subway or some other form of public mass transit system, right? That would certainly help with traffic and aid pedestrians in safely getting to their destinations. Well, instead, Elon's proposed tunnel was designed only for Tesla cars and could only move a fraction of the people that a subway system would be able to. The Hyperloop has been described as a death trap by those who have used the only existing tunnel, which leads out of a Las Vegas convention center far from the interconnected network Elon proposed and already costing billions. Plus, that doubles the death traps for anyone using the Hyperloop, since they not only risk asphyxiation after being stuck in their car in a cramped tunnel, but also death by burning alive in their bomb on wheels. Just like with Zip2, SpaceX, and now the Boring Company, Elon's only ideas are merely less efficient and more expensive versions of products or companies that already exist. And this applies to everything he's ever invented. Even his barbaric Neuralink brain chips are just pricey forms of animal cruelty. Any one of Elon Musk's absurd predictions and promises that have never come to pass should have killed any credibility he once had. But being a world-class expert in coming out with baseless claims is all part of his business strategy. By embellishing that he or his companies are capable of the impossible with enough confidence, he gets investors to take note and thereby channel funding his way. Doing it so publicly and audaciously has gotten Elon in hot water with the SEC in the past, though, after he lied about taking Tesla private while having no plans to do so. He has a track record that should make more people skeptical about every one of his ventures. Time and time again, Musk has proved that he cares more about his own image and greed than benefiting people. If anything, he's shown active contempt for working people by dehumanizing them with demonstrably poor working conditions, threats of financial ramifications, and unfeasible out-of-touch expectations. For someone so desperate for people to like him, he never seems to direct his vast amounts of wealth toward anything worthwhile. Oh, sorry, we stand corrected. He did give $1 million to plant trees, just once. He spent billions more trying to buy Twitter. Speaking of, after he had purchased enough stock to make himself the majority shareholder of the social media company, Elon Musk made a move to purchase Twitter for $44 billion. Not only was this much more than the company was valued at, Musk also became legally bound to go through with the purchase despite trying to back out in a series of back-and-forth lawsuits with Twitter. Eventually caving, he was determined to make it more than just a social media website where people make short posts within a given character limit, and instead intended for Twitter to be the most accurate source of information on the internet. And if you've spent any time on that corner of the internet since, you'll already know how well that's been going. Elon Musk proceeded to lay off almost 4,000 members of the staff, many of whom were responsible for the day-to-day running of the website. He also seemed to have a preference for inflicting these manic and spontaneous firings on anyone who tried to present him with the reality of implementing the new changes he had in mind for the site. Most of these were either pointless, like monetizing verification checkmarks, or outright dangerous, like relaxing Twitter's content moderation and allowing for a rise in racist and anti-LGBTQ hate speech on the platform. Some of these callous firings were done publicly via Twitter itself, especially whenever Musk would tweet about the current state of the website. On multiple occasions, he would make a declaration about the technical aspects of running the website that was in all instances inaccurate, only to be corrected by an employee working at Twitter. He would then fire said employee highly unprofessionally via a reply tweet before deleting threads and claiming their suggestions of fixing issues with the site as his own ideas, issues that had been caused largely by his earlier firing of the relevant support staff. Twitter Blue was Musk's newest invention, wherein users could pay a monthly subscription fee to have a blue checkmark, previously reserved for companies and celebrities to confirm that their tweets were their own, and not those of an imitator. Blue was an attempt by Elon to make back some of the money he lost on his obligation to buy Twitter, as well as that lost from advertisers who began leaving the platform in droves after the rise in hate speech. Understandably, most companies don't want their advertisements appearing in someone's feed alongside unsavory tweets. More recently, at the time of this writing, Elon rebranded the site to kill off any remaining vestiges of the original Twitter. Still pushing for the most poorly marketable name ever, X.com was dragged back from the grave, becoming the new name for Twitter. Musk has declared his intention for X to become the everything app, akin to WeChat, which is widely used in China and combines a number of online services. Elon intends for people to be able to use X.com not only as a social app, but as an online banking service. Understandably, nobody wants to hand over their sensitive banking details to a company where their information could be at risk of being stolen, thanks to Twitter/X losing a huge portion of its cybersecurity department when Elon fired them. There is still a huge list of deplorable things that Musk has been responsible for, so many that if we were to detail all of them, this video would probably double in length. Among just a few in recent memory was his harassment of a female flight attendant, his suing of a Tesla whistleblower for $167 million, and bullying a 19-year-old who ran a Twitter page about Elon's own private jet, only posting information based on publicly accessible flight logs. And to round things off, not that long ago, Elon received praise from Russian President Vladimir Putin after interfering with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Musk denied a request by the Ukrainian military for internet access via his Starlink satellite, which they needed in order to coordinate defenses against invading Russian forces. Denying them access meant that Musk had essentially sabotaged the Ukrainian military's attempts to defend themselves. Despite the ugly truth about Elon Musk being easy to find for those who are willing to look for it, he still garners a delusional cult following born of his relatable online persona, making his devotees believe he's an ordinary guy just like them. In reality, Elon couldn't be any more out of touch with the average person. It's all just a distraction from what he really is: a greedy man with too much power and a frightening disregard for the safety and well-being of anyone he views as beneath him.